Hi, and welcome to the Art House. I'm Elise, and I have been making and sharing online for 20 years, but this is going to be my first YouTube video. So we'll see. I love photos. I love text. I love an email, obviously. But I think that there is something extra special about video. It's a bonus to get to see and chat, and I feel like it can be a little bit more, sometimes a little bit more in depth, particularly when you want to page through something and really get in there. So this first video is going to be a walkthrough of I'm always starting anew, but a new watercolor journal that I just started. I had the great joy of going to Italy with a couple friends in October, and we went to Florence for 3 days and then took a train to Venice for 1 day and then went home. So it's a bit of a whirlwind, but we made time to paint and watercolor. We all brought journals, we all painted, and it's really special. I knew I'd want to paint, but what was crazy is I came home and I still wanted to paint. So I'm going to take you through the journal. I'm going to show you what I painted while I was gone, and then I'm going to show you what I painted when I got home. And then with you, I'm going to paint. I'm going to take this picture that I took in Venice and translate it into here with watercolor. A little bit Bob Ross style, except not nearly as good as him. But I don't know how instructional it will be, but I do know that I love to watch people make something because I love to see the steps. It feels like if you just look at the end, it's impressive. And it feels really out of reach. But sometimes I think when you watch it come together, it feels a little bit more accessible. So let's do it. Let's see what it is. Let's page through and then let's paint. So here it is, my little book. I'm gonna open it up. I spoke too soon on the front page. EJBC, my initials, Painted Travels, great. But I'm realizing as I've been working on this that I kind of want to keep painting. I don't want to wait for traveling. So I may add something else. Painted Travels and everyday. Painted Travels and normal life at home. We'll see. I'm not sure. All right. So this is my most common thing. I take a picture of a scene and I paint it. And my objective is never to document it exactly, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to kind of capture the feeling. What is the feeling at my painting skill level? So we've got some loose details. You're getting the idea. You can tell that these are roofs. You can tell that this is kind of buildings. We have some windows for effect. We have some of the greenery, some close-up roofs, and then they're slanting away a little bit as shown through my windows that are slanted. This was based off of a picture I took off of my friend's right out of her window. So cute, effective, does the job. Never going for perfect, always going for a feeling, the idea. I like to alternate spreads that are painted of like a full vista with some details. And so 2 different things. These were both inspired by our trip to the Uffizi Gallery. And this one is from the Botticelli painting, The Birth of Venus. So obviously it's a stunning, beautiful painting. I'm not trying to replicate Botticelli, but the part of that art that I was the most, took my breath away was kind of the flowers that are falling down in the painting. It's like to the left of Venus. And I loved them. I was obsessed with them. And so this is kind of my take. Is it even sort of kind of in the realm of Botticelli? Of course not. But it's there and you kind of get the feeling. You can see my little silver painted kind of mermaid wave details just like in the original painting. And then I love to put a little note kind of reminding me back what it was. And then here, this little flower looks like almost like a thistle to me. This was painted on the frame of this giant masterwork. There was just this tiny little painted flower, and I found it insanely charming. I love the idea that this amazing painter paints this painting. It takes, years and years and years. And at the end, he's like, you know what I need? I need a tiny flower on the gold leaf detail. So I was obsessed, took a picture of it, and then, copied it a bunch of times to kind of fill the page. I love to do that. I love to make a pattern on a page. This is a view through, after we went through the Uffizi Gallery, we walked the corridor, which is where there was the rich family in Florence who kind of ruled Florence for centuries. And they had a way to get from what is now the Uffizi Gallery to their homes, I think, something like that. And we walked the corridor. It's probably a little overhyped. I'm not sure you need to do it. But this was a view out the window of the bridge. My phone told me it was Ponte Vecchio, so that's what I wrote. But again, is it perfect? No. I'm just trying to kind of get something down, have fun with it, and play a little bit with everything. This I painted while on the train from Florence to Venice, and it looks like I was on a train. It's a little bit shaky. It's rough. I kind of love it for that reason alone. Does it do justice? No. Does it capture the feeling? I kind of think yes, and that's always my goal. So I just played a bit with the colors. I added the gold. As I realized it was getting as shaky as it was, I leaned into that more than not. I like to paint, particularly something like this, loosely, right? I don't want to paint it from a crouched, stressed position. I want to paint it feeling free. Hobbies, I think, should be freeing. And when I look at this, I feel like, yeah, that was free. And I'm never going to, well, maybe I should write something, because I would say I'm never going to forget that I was on the train to Venice, but maybe I will forget. I should write that down. Okay, now we're to the things that I painted once we got home. I went back and looked through my pictures, and I was like, what do I want to capture from this trip? What's important to me to get down on paper? And I just didn't want to stop painting. So this is the logo of one of the restaurants that we ate at. It is right in like the town center right there, and I thought it was cute. I thought that would be not too hard to paint. So painted that. And then I bought just 2 souvenirs while we were there. A leather bag from a shop. It was like a woven leather, so I painted that. And then I bought a tiny piece of art. It's like maybe 3 inches across, and like kind of trying to paint that there. So 2 little souvenirs. And then once we got home, I painted a bit more from Venice. So this is obviously one of the waterways, and there were 2 boats on the waterway, and then a bunch of the different buildings. A lot here with windows, so many windows. I feel like that's almost all I painted on this journey. But then outlined in white, some of the windows had their plants, and just a fun one for me to do. And then here, this is kind of 2 in 1. This is some of the detail. This was on we passed a building that had these like gorgeous cement, well, I would say cement, stone carvings. And this is kind of my take on them. I just did the same thing twice, just starting a little bit different, right? Like that is the same as that. So setting them off a little bit different, took 2 tries at it just to kind of see what I could paint. And then that left me with 2/3 of the book. And I painted a vertical photo of some of the buildings and then the walkway. And we were lucky. It was not very crowded, so there weren't really many people in the picture, but I left them out anyway. And that's that one. So what I want to do now is paint the next page in real time as you watch. Let's do it. All right, so I'm using Case for Making Watercolors, which is a small San Francisco company, and they sell each color individually, like in those little pans. And I think 2 years ago now, I bought my first set of 12 of their colors. And then just over the years, as I've thought, hey, I wish I had a red, I wish I had a cobalt blue, I get more. And then I can kind of pop them in and out of these different cases. So this was my travel set based on what I thought I might want. You can see I didn't have a light pink, so we mix it, right? We make red and white and get a light pink. And I have enough now that I feel like I can always make any color that I want. And you can see some of them, like that light blue that I've used for so many skies, is out. But love the colors, they're great. This is how I tend to start. I very much color block, and to kind of psych myself into it, I think we're not painting buildings, we're painting shapes, right? We're not painting boats, we're painting shapes. That's it. And it helps me get going. I have to get something down on the page that doesn't feel overwhelming. And if I just think these are just kind of slanted rectangles, that helps a lot. You can see that I have 3 different brushes. The big one that I started with is a size 4. The one I'm using on the water here is a size 4. And then I have a 2, which does kind of middle of the ground, literally, middle ground work. And then I have a 1 that I'll use for detail. You'll see that later. And as I've said, my goal is not to, I'm not realist. That's not what this is about. This is about having fun. This is about my hobby. And so I don't worry too much about like shadow or light. You can see up in the photo, the sun was behind those buildings on the right. And so there's definitely a shadow cast onto the water. And I kind of did that by having the darker water on the right, but it wasn't my big goal. So here I'm going in, adding some dots. This is when it starts to become real. It's not just rectangles anymore. It's like, oh, okay, we got something going. These might be shapes. This is that number 1 brush that I love to use. It feels like it starts to become something exciting when I'm using this brush. A lot of windows. This trip was all windows. One of the decisions I'm always trying to make is, how close am I going to try to follow what the inspiration image is, and like where am I going to just kind of take liberties with it. There's no formula. It's just like what's going to feel good, what sounds good. I sped this video up 600%, so it's 6x speed. When I was actually painting, it took me 28 minutes to make this page, which feels normal. I think like when I am traveling, taking a break of a half an hour to paint feels like a normal activity for me. Sometimes once a day, sometimes twice a day. I'm an introvert and I love downtime and I appreciate like kind of quiet time. And when I travel with my kids, especially, I think they benefit from quiet time. So for me, it's really relaxing. And I think a half an hour feels pretty good. You can see here I'm adding the white. There was so much, I did a lot with white detail on this trip because all the windows were always framed in white. So it was fun to play with. This white from Case for Making, again, is pretty opaque. And it does a really good job, kind of highlighting and going over some of the dark colors. I really like these watercolors because they dry quickly. And so I can kind of move from shape to shape, and then while something is drying, I can work on the other half, and then while that half is drying, I can come back, because I don't want my white to smear, right? I want it to be going down on very already dry, dark color. It just adds a little bit of detail. It's really fun. So we're almost done. Here at the end, popping in those windows in the back makes it come alive. Then I went over with just some water and then added a bit of blue to kind of finish up the water. And there we go. That's it. How'd I do? We gotta compare. Okay, yeah, I can see it. Okay, video 1 done. Check. I think the first one's the hardest. You gotta rip the Band-Aid, and we did. And we'll see how this format goes and how often I may get to come back to it. But right now it feels exciting, and I'm trying to follow what feels exciting in this phase of my creative journey. So thanks for being here. More from me is always available at elisejoy.com, and I have a newsletter called Scattering Seeds if you're into this. Thanks.